Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how to master doing nail art lines, stripes, whatever you want to call them, but I feel like learning how to do lines properly is probably the biggest first step into learning how to do nail art. So to start off, I want to talk a little bit about prepping our gel. Can you guys see that real quick? All right, so I prefer to use potted gels for nail art. And really, when you're shopping for nail art gels, again, I'll list all the ones that are my favorites down below for different reasons. But it really comes down to personal preference. And also, a lot of people ask me, Liz, why do you use gel over acrylic paint or nail polish? Gel is very forgiving. I can continue to work with it till I'm happy. I can also remove it, and I can work layer by layer. So I'll show you guys that as we move forward, what I mean by working layer by layer. But I really like working with gel, and it just gives you so much more flexibility than acrylic paint or nail polish. Plus, if you're doing a gel manicure or gel nail art, or you're doing nail art over gel or acrylic, whatever, I do also find that doing nail art in gel lasts longer. It tends to chip less, because I know sometimes when you put a bunch of acrylic paint nail art and then you put top coat over it, like gel top coat, the acrylic paint can tend to crack and chip. Same thing with nail polish. And if you mess up on the design, you literally have to almost start over, because you're not able to just wipe off one layer. You have to completely start over from scratch. So those are some of the main reasons why I like to work with gel. Okay, real quick, let me see if I can show you. There we go. That's perfect. Can you guys see that there's a little bit of separation here? Like, it looks kind of swirly, and like right in here, this looks like clear gel that's sitting on top of my white. So before you get started, you want to gently stir your art gels. Again, it depends. I haven't used this one in a while, so if you're using your gels all the time, you won't likely have this issue. There you go. You can really see the clear gel sitting on top. And you can also see where Liz was lazy and dipped a little bit of orange into her white. Not a big deal. But yes, sometimes I work fast and I just dip my brush because I need a quick little doodad, and I get a little bit of other color in my gel. Whatever. All right, so to start, what we're going to do before we even load up our brush and start painting, we're going to make sure that our gel is well mixed. And again, depending on the formula, depending on how often you use your gel, how long it's been sitting there, whatever, it's a good idea to just stir art gels. Gel art gels, anything that's kind of listed as an art gel, art paint, liner gel, whatever, they tend to be extremely pigmented. And depending on the consistency, they also tend to be a little bit stickier and a little bit thicker sometimes than typical gel polish. So you can see like this holds its shape a little bit longer before it starts self-leveling. So you want to do a good job stirring all of that pigment. I don't really care about bubbles in this situation, because I'm going to be using this for stripes and for details. And even if I do this full coverage over a nail, the bubbles are not going to be a problem for me. The bubbles in this type of gel tend to relax really quickly. The only time you want to be really careful about bubbles is shaking like a gel polish or working with a builder gel. Typically, I don't stir builder gels, okay? And usually the bubbles will just come to the surface and you can just tap the top and they'll go away. All right, but can you see how much more well mixed that is? And I really try to do a good job of scraping the bottom of the gel pot. This goes for any potted gel, and sometimes it even applies to bottled gel as well, because sometimes bottled gel, if it's been sitting there for a long time, even if it's got beads inside, sometimes the pigment gets stuck to the bottom. So once in a blue moon, if I haven't used a color in a long time, I'll get out an orange wood stick and just scrape the bottom of that bottle without the brush in it, and just make sure all that pigment is well mixed. I'm going to put a little bit of gel on my palette. Now, if you guys are freaking out about my pretty palette, this is literally a fake agate plastic resin palette that has fake gold foil on the side. I think I got this from someone. I don't really remember where, but I have seen these on eBay, Amazon. I think they're on Wish. You can basically get them almost anywhere. Okay. So I'm going to put a little bit of white on here. And actually, I'm going to put a little bit of black too, so that let's just do black and white. That's a good contrasting set of colors to use for demonstrational purposes when we're doing nail art. Now, I do like stringier art gels. Like, what I mean by stringy is when I pull away, see how it's stringy like that? Stringy for stripes is nice because it pulls with you instead of breaking like a paint. And I would equate that to like the comparison between working with more of a honey consistency to working with more of like marshmallow cream. This is going to be a nice striping gel because it's going to pull with your brush and it's not going to break the line. If you use something that's a little bit more fluffy, like more acrylic paint type texture where it breaks when you're painting it, and you'll see in a second what I mean, it tends to be just a little bit more difficult to do really nice consistent stripes. So I do like something that's a little bit stringy, that I can get those stringy lines going, and it's just like a sticky, stringy, self-leveling type of gel. Now, this is the brush that I showed you guys in the last video where I had revived it, but I had not fixed the bristle issue where they're kind of splayed apart. So I want to show you really quick before I get started how I start loading up my brush. And let me see if I can zoom in just a teeny bit more for y'all. Love that. Okay, see how my bristles are separated? Can you see that? And just when I put a little bit of gel on my brush, they start to stick together. So even there is better than it was before. I want you guys to think about a brush as a fountain pen more than a paintbrush. This isn't like painting a house. It's more like loading up a fountain pen, and we're going to allow the paint to come down the bristles to the tip of the fountain pen. So if you guys don't know what a fountain pen is, and if I'm really dating myself, because fountain pens were still used when I was a kid and I learned calligraphy and handwriting in school, Google fountain pen. It basically is a pen that has a pointed tip on it, and instead of it being like a ballpoint pen where there's a little bead rolling around and distributing ink onto the paper, it actually would come down the nib and actually deposit straight out, and you can load it up, which means you can suck up ink. And it's very, this brushing technique is very much like a fountain pen. So hopefully that analogy makes sense to you guys. Okay, so before I get started, I need to load up the bristles, and you can see, can you guys see right there where the black is starting to soak up into the bristles where it's all uneven, almost like hair color where it's like soaking up into the hairs. What I want to do is I want to get that black gel about 3/4 of the way up. I don't want to get it all the way to the tip of the metal. So see how I've got black almost all the way up, but I've got a teeny, teeny, tiny space where there's no gel. That is exactly what you want, and that's why I don't typically work out of the jar, because I want to maintain control over where the gel goes on my brush. I don't want gel inside the actual tip of, of the metal. I don't want it in there where it's being crimped and where it'll get stuck in there. So I like to just load up my brush about that far. Maybe it's more than 3/4. Maybe it's, I don't know, 5/6. I don't know what kind of fraction I should use. So you're going to load it up. Now, the way you load it up, if you want to get gel in your brush, is you're going to press down. And see, you can see the gel like squeeze up in between those bristles right there. That's how you load up with gel. And then to get it back into a nice point, all I'm going to do is do this kind of motion, and then I'm going to pull and twist like that. Okay, and you keep doing this until you get a nice even coating. And this is that brush that had a little bit of a hook in it. So the hook is going to come back now that we're getting these bristles together, but it's not a huge deal. Okay, so I just keep pulling, twisting, and now I've got the gel in there. And now the way to test this is do a little test stripe on your palette and see if you get nice kind of even color depositing like that. So you kind of need to do this several times, especially when you're reloading a brush that hasn't been used in a while. Maybe you just cleaned it. But you really want to take your time and just get a lot of that gel loaded in, and then twist and pull so that you don't end up with a big dollop of gel on the tip. And then, ooh, look at that. Nice. Okay, so just keep going until you feel like you've got nice lines going. Don't just dab in and pick up, because what you're going to get is you're going to get a big dollop, and so when you go to do a stripe, you're going to get a lot of color deposited here and then not so much down here. The only time I do that is when I need a teardrop of gel, and so what I do is, instead of patting in like this, pulling and twisting, I come in from the side and I pick up a little dollop from the side. And that's typically if I'm going to do something like, drips, and I want it to be fatter on the end and I want it to be thinner down here, then I will pick up a nice teardrop of gel on my brush like that. But notice how I'm not dipping my brush all the way down into the bristles, all the way to the metal tip. I want to make sure that I don't get gel all the way up into the handle, so be very cautious about that. Okay, so even if you have too much gel on your brush, just go to the side where there isn't any more gel and then twist and pull. Okay, same thing with white. So let's move over to white here. White, also look for your brush accidentally depositing other color. Now this is the brush that already has gel on it, so you can see it doesn't load up as quickly because I've got clear gel, a little bit of clear gel in my brush. So this is a good thing for you guys to see the difference. When you've got a dry brush, it'll soak up a lot faster. When you've got a gel brush, you know, a brush that's been used and it's got a little bit of gel stuck in it, it's for, you know, keeping the bristles tight together. You need to take some time and really just wiggle, 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 press in and see how that gel will just seep up in between. It's exactly what I want. Okay? So pressing into the gel and then twist and pull. And if you do get a little bit of gel on your, like right here, it's not a big deal. But I just don't want you guys saturating your handle all the way into your gel, because it'll end up ultimately ruining your brush. And then same thing, you can swoop in from the side if you need a teardrop of gel. And you can see how nice and stretchy this gel is. I really like this gel for doing stripes. Depends on what I'm doing. This isn't a great gel for if you're trying to do like shading or something, because look how stringy and sticky it is. But this is a really good gel for if you're doing lines, stripes, anything like that, geometric shapes, stuff like that. This type of sticky gel is great for that. It's like, we call it like a liner gel because it just makes lines so easy because it stretches. And what I meant by it doesn't break is when I'm drawing a line, it just draws one consistent line. It doesn't self-level, it doesn't bleed, but it also, I don't get like a, where it's doing that, breaking. Some of the gels that you try to paint with, you'll notice that it kind of breaks like that. And obviously I'm doing this with the same gel. I'm just trying to demonstrate what it will look like. So I really like gels where it is really stretchy and you get a nice even stripe and the line doesn't break because the gel pulls with you. It's got elasticity to it. All right, so that's important to know. Now, one thing I didn't mention last time is if you're going to be doing really, really, really long stripes, let me just put this guy in here for comparison. So this is the brush that I just loaded up with black. This one on the right, I loaded up with black. It's still got lumpy black on it, so don't worry about the shape. But you can see the difference in length. So the one on the bottom is more like a detail brush. This is what I would use for either small nails, like small nail plate size that I'm working in a small area, and or smaller details. And I don't need a lot of gel being deposited. For longer stripes, I usually use a longer striper. And the reason being is if we think about this like a fountain pen again, that imagine how much gel I can load up in this length of bristles versus this length of bristles. So the more we're able to load up the brush with gel and keep that nice straight shape, we're going to be able to do much longer stripes. So if you're going to be doing, you know, lengthwise stripes, you know, kind of like Beetlejuice stripes, then you're going to want to use a longer striper brush like this. And I'll show you guys how to use both in just a second. Okay, so I've got a nail here that I have just polished with white gel polish. And it still has the tacky layer on it, still has the inhibition layer on it. Now there's a couple things to point out for those of you that are using all different kinds of gels at home. Some of the gel polishes that you might use, especially if you're mixing and matching, you have to take into consideration the inhibition layer. Just like I've shown you guys in previous videos, the inhibition layer can create a soupy texture for you to paint stripes on top of, or it can be the perfect texture for you to paint stripes on top of. This particular gel that I've chosen, it has hardly any inhibition layer. It's like almost dry when it cures. So I really like painting stripes on top of this particular gel. And believe it or not, it's actually the same one that I'm going to be painting stripes with. So it's this Light Elegance gel paint. Usually if I'm going to do black and white stripes, I'll use the same white underneath as the brand or whatever line of gel that I'm going to be doing the stripes with. So I highly recommend you don't mix and match brands if possible. If you are going to mix and match, you may want to actually like top coat this and buff it with a nice fine buffer, or you can use the base coat of the brand of striping gel that you're going to use. But I just want to point that out because if you're trying to do perfect stripes and you've got either a gel polish that bleeds, which means it feathers out on the nail, or you've got a situation where the inhibition layer from one gel is interacting with your stripes. Either one is a bad scenario. Okay, so let me just zoom out a teeny bit. Okay, so let's start with just basic short brush technique. And again, I'll show you guys how to do this. So let's load up our black gel. Okay, so I'm going to pat in, and I do this every time. Pat in, twist, and pull. Okay, and we're going to do kind of a fine, we're going to do kind of a fine line here. So let's just do some fine lines here at the top, okay? Well, actually, maybe I'll just start in the middle to show you guys quick. All right, when you start with a stripe, always give yourself a little dot before you start pulling. And again, this is more like pulling the gel than it is painting a line. It's not the same as when you use a marker and you draw a line. It's more like you're gonna pull the gel into a straight line. And if you think about that pulling motion, your stripes are gonna come out much straighter. Now I'm using a very short detail brush for this first, just to show you guys. I wanna show you the difference on my next one. So let's just do a stripe here in the center just to demonstrate, okay? So what I do is I start a little starting point here, and then what I do is I set my tip down and I just pull along like that. Okay? It's okay if it's not perfect on the first pull, because you're probably going to find that it's not even close to perfect on the first pull. But what we're trying to do is make sure that the thickness of the gel is very, very even. We're also working on a curved surface, right? So this is curved, it's not flat. So we also need to either rotate the nail as we're working, or we need to change the curvature of our brush. So as I'm painting this line, I have to make sure that I'm doing consistent pressure all the way along the line. Otherwise, if I just press really hard and then lift up, I'm going to get kind of this weird heavy deposit here, mess in the middle, and then, oh my gosh, I ran out of gel because I pulled up. So load up your brush one more time. So if I keep the pressure consistent, nice and slow and even, pulling, 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 you can see I can get a much more even straight line than if I was just like this. Okay? And a lot of you are probably doing this with it where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to paint these lines, and you're getting something like this. So instead of painting it on and picking up your brush multiple times, I want you to work on just giving yourself a starting point like this, setting the tip of your brush down, and then as you go, you pull. I usually pull the nail away from me as I pull my hand towards myself. And if I'm doing this from the side so you guys can see, because I feel like the angle is really important. Oh, let me get rid of my little bulbous tip on here. Okay. So this is going to be kind of hard because I've never actually filmed it from the side before. Let me move my hand. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm doing my little starting point, and then what I'm doing is, see how I'm like laying down almost the whole brush and pulling? Ooh, that's a nice stripe. Okay? So it's not like this where I'm painting with the tip of my brush. I'm actually creating a starting point, so I kind of, and this is ugly because I'm doing it from the side, but I'm creating a starting point, and then I'm laying the whole, oh my gosh, this is hard to do from the side. I did it better the first time. I should have just stopped. Okay, lay the whole, I call it the belly, and then I'm just pulling like that. Okay? So this is a really good thing to practice. Load up your brush. Again, I'll show you real quick. Load up your brush. Push some gel into the bristles, twist and pull so you get a nice even coating. Okay, and then here, give yourself a little starting point, and then put the belly down and pull. Okay? And again, depending on how thin you want these to be, if you don't want that thick of a line, you're going to load up your brush, you're going to do the same thing, and when you're doing these lines, you're just going to barely touch the surface of the gel. So you can make super teeny tiny lines just by changing the amount of pressure that you put on your brush. But when we're doing kind of Beetlejuice stripes, you want to just lay that belly down and really just pull it all the way across. Now I'm going to clean this off really quick, just to be able to show you guys with a longer striper. So I'm just going to cleanse this off. And it's okay. Usually a lot of you are really worried about like gel not adhering to gel if you cleanse off the tacky layer. It can happen and it can chip, but honestly, it's very rare unless you're using like a crappy gel to begin with. It's okay to cleanse, and I'll show you guys in a second what happens when I want to get like a perfect line. So I've got a little bit of black on there, who cares? All right, I'm going to load up my striper. Same thing as I did before. This one also has a little bit of gel in it, so I might need to cleanse this one. I'm not sure. We'll see. I'm going to try and just work it in. And this is a really good way, like if you have a brush that you're trying to wake it up or warm it up. I call it warming up my brush because it's been a while and I want to get this brush, hey, wake up. I want you to be springy and bouncy and I want you to hold product. So I talk to my brushes sometimes in my head. Whatever makes it work for you. Okay. Long striper. Let me show you the difference. All right. So same thing. Starting point, and let's start all the way up on the edge because this is typically where we would start, is like let's do a center stripe. So starting point all the way up on the edge, and this is a huge nail tip. Okay. Lay the whole belly of the brush down as you pull. All right? See how I got a full solid line without it breaking? Now, again, first pass might not be perfect. So let's say I need to straighten this out a little bit because it doesn't look so great. It's a little bit on the left here. I'm doing this on camera, trying to watch what I'm doing without actually paying attention. So what I need to do is kind of bring this over a little bit to the right and bring this over a little bit to the right and straighten this out. So let me just do this. Liz trying to fix her work on her demo. Looks a little bit straighter. This is why I love gel, because if I don't have the perfect straight line, if this were polish, it would already be drying. If it was acrylic paint, it'd already be drying. And like, let's say I just really flubbed this and I wanted to start over. That would be really hard to do without messing up the whole thing. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so I can work a little bit easier. Now, sometimes when I'm working, I have the perfect line almost everywhere, but maybe I've got either a piece of fuzz, grit, whatever, something that's messing up my nice stripe. Oh, there we go. That's a nicer stripe. And you can even fix down here. What I look for with stripes is I want the stripe to not have any kind of, I don't want it to be like a Y at the end or a V. I want it to look like a stripe all the way from the tip of the nail all the way to the cuticle area, nice ribbon of gel. And so the nice thing about this is you can continue to pull and you can put a little bit more pressure just to either widen your stripes, straighten it, whatever it is. But using a gel like this is really nice because look how nice and straight that is. Okay, let's say there's a spot you don't like. So let me just load up my brush one more time. Okay. Typically, if I got this, and I want to back up for a second before I move forward. If you do the world's most perfect stripe, it doesn't matter how many passes it takes you to get there. If you're super happy with this stripe, you need to cure it. Okay. Because curing this means if I mess up on the next stripe, I can just wipe off the next stripe. All right. And actually, to demonstrate, I will do that. And it's important to mention it doesn't really have to be a full cure. It can literally just be a flash cure, maybe 10 seconds in your lamp. Because if you're doing a lot of nail art, you don't want to be waiting for 30 to 60 seconds or whatever your cure time is in between stripes, lines, details, whatever. Just flash cure it. It'll really help make sure that the stuff you like stays put. And then if you mess up on the next one, you can wipe it off. Not a big deal. But wiping off means we're introducing fuzz. It means we're removing tacky layers. So I'm just going to show you really quick how I fix something that I don't like. So let's say I do a little bit too heavy here. Okay. Get a little bit more gel if I run out. Okay. And again, I'm not doing this looking at the whole nail right now. I'm just showing you guys some different techniques. You can see right here, I've got a little bit of a hump of product right up here at the cuticle area. And then I've got this nice stripe all the way down that's relatively nice. If you have something like this that you don't like, you can use a clean brush. This has a little bit of clear gel on it, like most of my brushes do. And you can use it almost like a squeegee. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this brush, doesn't matter what shape it is, you know, oval or square. I'm going to take this brush and I'm just going to squeegee that gel off and then wipe it on a lint-free surface. Same thing, I can squeegee this side. See how I can fix that? And you can even use a teeny bit of cleanser too if you need to use a little bit of gel cleanser. Just make sure that it's not soaking wet. You want to really press off the excess, because if you get gel cleanser on this, it'll really feather out, okay? But you can just take this and you just kind of squeegee off any part that you don't like. So that's one way you can save your work, is if everywhere is perfect except for one little spot, just use your brush and kind of squeegee off an area that you feel like you got a little bit too much. Now, last but not least, perfect stripes, okay? If we look at this nail from the side, right? From the side, it looks good. Looks like I painted a nice straight stripe, but what I want to look at is from the top. Can you guys see that since this is a curved nail, the spacing in between does not look even? And that's because I'm trying to make this stripe straight when this is a curved nail. So it's kind of an optical illusion. I'm going to get a little bit more gel here on my palette. When we're painting stripes on a nail, it's not like painting on a flat surface. It's a curved surface. So when you get to the sides of your nail and you're going to do like Beetlejuice stripes, you actually need to curve your stripes in order to make it look straight from the top. And this is something that took me a while to figure out when I was first starting to do nail art. And nobody ever talks about this, so I wanted to share this with you guys. Okay? So what I look at is I try to keep the spacing between the stripes the same all the way down, even if that means that I curve my stripe on the side. And this is how you get those like perfect Beetlejuice stripes. Just gonna pull this down. And if you have a little hump or something at the end, just fix that. You can adjust. My plastic tip has a little hump in it, okay? So see how this looks more even, but if I look at it from the side, look how curved the line is, right? And if I go over to the side more and I do one more, it's almost like I'm actually doing a rainbow at this point. I'm not actually creating a straight stripe, but from the top, it's going to look straight. Straight stripe is kind of a tongue twister. So from the side of the nail, your stripes are actually going to start to look more like a rainbow on the side because they're going to have an arch to them. But from the top, they're going to look more straight. And again, you kind of have to adjust as you go to make sure if someone's looking at this nail from the top, that it looks like they've got perfect pinstripes, Beetlejuice stripes. I like to call them Beetlejuice stripes. So just practice that. And again, it takes a little bit of fudging, finessing. Again, if I've got my stripes too close together, maybe this one, see I've got a little bit over here and I want to fix that. Take your brush. You can even go at a little bit of an angle to get in between without touching. And I can just push the gel off and fix that. And you can even squeegee off areas that you're like, oh, I like the rest of this, but I don't like it down here. Just squeegee it off, give it a second to air dry, and then you can go back and you can fix that one spot that you're like, oh, I don't like that. I feel like I put too much gel, or I feel like it's over too far. Okay, and then you can fix even like over here too. Okay, so I can get like a more even coating here on the tip. So definitely keep a clean gel brush handy just to be able to squeegee off, use a little bit of cleanser, and use that technique I was showing you guys before of, you know, setting your brush down, getting a starting point, and you're going to really, when you do this from the side, you're really going to push almost the entire length of your brush onto the surface of the nail, and you're just going to pull that down, and you can see it sliding and depositing color. Okay, and I just messed up my nice stripe, but who cares? But I really want you guys to think about setting the whole brush down and see how it just conforms to the surface of the nail like that. It's just so nice and sticky on there. And just pull that brush down rather than trying to paint it from the side with just the tip. I do use the tip for certain things like lettering sometimes if I just want a little bit of gel to come out, or if I'm doing something teeny tiny, which I'll get into in a future episode. But for the sake of doing stripes, I want you guys to practice. And again, you can use a small detail brush. You can use a longer striper. You guys already know how to trim it down. You can see right here, I trimmed down this one a little bit as well to get nice thin striper. So now you guys know how to customize your brushes to take care of your striper brushes, and you know how to make pretty stripes like this. Isn't this a pretty nail? It's so pretty. I hope you guys practice this, and if you guys want to, tag me in your finished striped nails. You can do hashtag the nail hub on Instagram. I love seeing what you guys create after watching these videos, and I really encourage you to practice your stripes. And remember, curve those stripes on the side to get that optical illusion where it looks straight from the top. And I wish you guys lots of luck in this, and practice makes perfect. See you guys next time. Bye.